This video is brought to you by Quiztones, my all-time favorite app for learning frequencies.
What's up, friend? We are out here again in the wild, in the mountains of Montana, and we're mixing audio. I've got my trusty sidekick, as always, Margot here. Yesterday, we went on a 10-mile run through the mountains, and she's a little tired this morning. So I'm currently working on an EP for a really good jazz artist. And this is kind of like a live EP, so it's just piano, is a full grand piano and just a single vocal. And they recorded it together all in one take, and it's a really beautiful record. As I was going through these tracks and importing them and getting them ready for the mixing process, I realized that this would be a really good video for someone that their goal is to receive tracks and to mix for other artists, especially remotely like this, or just to kind of see the exact process of all the steps that I go through to get a session ready for the mix. Most of the mixes that I do, I don't actually get to record them. So a lot of times the files that I get aren't in the best state or the perfect state and are ready to go for mixing. Sometimes the files are just way too low because they recorded it maybe from a live console, or the engineer may have been using a different DAW than ProTools, and so they exported every single track by itself as a stereo track, which I don't need a bunch of stereo tracks inside the session. So over the years, I've kind of figured out a simple way to go through this. And I thought, since this is a small session, it's a little bit more manageable and I can show you every single step without going through a massive like band session, for example. So before we get into this session, if you missed last week's video, I announced a brand new group session I'm calling the Mix Mastermind that I'm doing that's gonna start in about 3.5 weeks. So this is a 4-week mastermind where we meet 3 times a week. And I'm really looking for people who are truly passionate about audio. One of the things I believe is that you cannot teach passion. So if you're super passionate and you want to take your audio career seriously and get better mixes and get better clients, this is going to be a really fun group. So if you're interested at all in that, just click that link and book a call with me. I'd love to talk to you. All right, let's get into this thing. So I have my session here. So it's just a blank Pro Tools session. I used to use session templates and stuff a lot, and although I love the idea of session templates, I found that most of the time I would be deleting a lot of things off the template and adjusting things, and I don't know. I kind of like to enter every single session with just like a blank frame of mind, and there's certain things that I'll load up automatically that I'll show you, but I really like to build my sessions from the ground up because every session is so different, and sometimes there's sessions that need a lot of processing, sometimes there's sessions that don't really need a lot of processing because they're recorded very well. And so I just don't like to have things just built and ready to just click on. It's just kind of boring. I want to build it, you know, I want to be a part of the music, I guess. So I have a blank session here, and then our tracks are here, right here. Typically, when I'm doing a project like this, I like to set up every single session. So I'll go into every single song, set up every single session, and really spend time making sure there's no clicks or pops, and the editing is all there, and the session is just ready to mix. And that way I'm not diving too deep into one song and really only listening to one song for a long period of time, because I want my ears to be as fresh as possible. So I'll just start with song 1, I'll set up the session, edit it, and then go through each of these songs. And by the time I get to the end, usually I've kind of forgotten this first song, I don't really know what's going on, and then I'll go back to that first song, or whatever song the artist really wants to be done first, and then I'll just start mixing it. And I know that every single one of these sessions is ready. Now this record's kind of cool because it's simple, it's live, there's piano mics, room mics, and a vocal, you know? And so I'll be able to take things from the first session and sort of copy and paste into those next ones, but still keeping a fresh ear for each individual song. All right, so if I just import, I'm gonna show you an example of what happens. So basically, every time I get some audio from another engineer, I'll check these files, and almost every time I will get files that are stereo. So this vocals in 4, this should be a mono track. We'll hit input and it's stereo, right? And it's also 44.1, which typically I request to at least be recorded in 48, but it doesn't always happen. It is what it is. So this is a stereo audio track. I don't really need that. And so it gets kind of crazy because let me show you what happens if I just import this. So I'm going to go to import. We're going to select all these. We'll convert them. Open them in this session. Open. We'll let this process real quick. All right, so we'll just say new track, session start. Okay, so now you can see I've got piano high 2A1, piano high 2A2, piano high 3A1, A2, A2, A1. There's all these tracks, room left in 5, A1, A2, A1, A2, vocals, A1, A2. It's just kind of a mess. There's a lot of tracks here. There's too many tracks because I don't need a stereo vocal. I don't need a stereo piano left and a stereo piano right. That doesn't really exist. And you can see the panning is a little bit weird. It's all just kind of messed up. So we're going to delete what we have here. So let's get rid of this. And every time that I have a new session, I'll load that first set of tracks in there just to kind of see what it looks like, just so I have a reference of like, okay, what is going on? And then most of the time, I'll just delete them. And then I go over here to my friend Stereo Monoizer. Stereo Monoizer. This is an awesome program. It's pretty cheap. And it's just so good at analyzing your audio tracks and finding those mono tracks that are actually stereo, and it converts them to mono so that whenever you put them in your session, it's all clean and nice, and you don't have a bunch of extra tracks that you have to filter through inside of Pro Tools or whatever DAW you have. So I'll show you what I mean. So let's go back to our 4 here. This is the song that we're on. I'm going to select all these. We're just going to drag them in here. All right. So I have just some settings. They're basically just the default settings besides here. So the default is this overwrite files. And so what that means is basically what's going to happen is we're going to analyze these files. It's going to decide that these are all basically mono files. And then what it would do if it was in overwrite mode is just overwrite those stereo files and turn them to mono, which I don't really want to do that because sometimes you can mess something up or not really want some things analyzed if you have a much bigger session. And so I like to make sure that I'm creating brand new files of everything, right? So I'm going to go to my choose output folder and copy all files to output. So we're going to go here and we're going to go to 4 and make a new folder. Oops. Stereo Monoizer. And we're going to open. So what this is going to do is we're going to analyze all this stuff. So I'll click Analyze. So it's going to go through every single track that we have. And you can see right here it's saying it's going to convert mono. Convert mono, convert mono. It's going to convert mono. And it tells you what's going on. Partially pan to the right, hard pan left, hard right. Like there's just panning just from his DAW that whoever did this session, whoever did the recording. And so once I just look at this and it kind of is telling you what's going on, that basically every single one of these tracks is just 2 mono files that are kind of panned. So it's going to convert all this stuff to mono. And instead of overriding those original files, it's going to copy them to that new folder that we just made. So we're going to hit process and it's going to go through every single one of these. All right. And then it just tells you what it did, basically. You can look at this if you need to, just to make sure that it did what you want. And then now we have a folder here with the same tracks. So everything's the same. Oh, we're going to have somebody driving by. So now we have a folder here with the same tracks. And now we can go ahead and import that into our session. So here's our Stereo Monoizer. We're going to select all these. We're going to convert, open them again, open. Let it process. You can tell already that the processing is much faster because we don't have double of every single track, right? So we have half the amount of processing that we need to do inside of our Pro Tools session. Obviously, this works for any DAW. It's not just Pro Tools. It doesn't really matter the DAW you have. Ideally, when an engineer sends some stuff, like, they would send it mono every single time if it's a mono track. But sometimes people are in a hurry, even though I tell everybody, it just doesn't always make it down the line. And sometimes people are just so used to doing things a certain way, that's just how they do it, and they don't think about it, and they send it off, and they move on to the next thing, and it's really not that big of a deal. All right, so now this looks much different, right? So now we have our piano high, our whole, all this room left, room right, and then we have our vocal in 4. So everything here is in a much more manageable state than whenever we had it first bringing those files into our session. So now I'm gonna just put these in order a little bit. So I'm gonna take my piano low, so I got piano low, high, and then whole, and then we'll just put some colors on here for fun. Let's bring this over here, just make these purple. Our room left, make these that color, and our vocal, we'll make like that color. Oh, whoops. I need to hurry before the sun comes in here. Okay, cool. Awesome. So now we have our tracks in a decent spot. Okay, so now the next thing that I need to do is I need to create my outputs, right? So we're gonna create a main output. That's gonna be my main aux. And then we're gonna create a main master. So I have a master fader that's just ready to go. And then we're gonna create a main audio track called print. I'll explain all these. Okay, let's move these up here. Okay, and my print is gonna go to the top. Perfect. So I have actual presets for these that I have saved inside of Pro Tools. So my print track, which I'll show you what all these are in a second, but my print track, we're gonna recall track preset, Avid, JW Mix, we're gonna recall print. All right, perfect, so it just puts the bus, the correct output, it colors it kind of how it is. And then my main output, we're gonna do the same thing, recall track preset, JW Mix, main output. All right, does the same thing, colors it, all that stuff. My main master, we're just gonna set up as my main master and make sure that it has no color. All right, so now all my main outputs and everything are all set up. So what I have here on my main output, I showed this in a different video, but it's basically my mix bus, right? I used to work on a really big analog SSL console, and I kind of copied this from my mix bus in the studio. Obviously, it doesn't sound the exact same, but it's close for being remote like this. So it's just a simple SSL bus compressor, and then it is a SSL vintage drive. Love this thing. This is on every single mix always. Sometimes I'll swap out this bus compressor, but this vintage drive is just too good. And then I have just a Violet EQ doing a little bit of a low boost, a little bit at 90 hertz, and then a little bit of a high boost at 16K. Nothing crazy, nothing crazy. So I have this set up so that whenever I just play these tracks, it's just going through something that's familiar. So I know how it's supposed to sound, if that makes any sense. All right, and then in terms of routing, what we're gonna do is we'll create some auxes and stuff, but for now, we're just gonna route everything that we have here to that main master. Okay, so all of our input channels are going to the main master right here. The main master is outputted to this print right here, print track, and then this is going to my output, which is my Scarlett, right? Very, very simple. And I do this because we're gonna import one more thing. So I'm gonna go to import. I have these rough mixes that are just from whatever the engineer did that recorded this. We'll open this up. Awesome. We're gonna throw this to the clip list. We're gonna open up, oh, wrong thing. We're gonna open up my clip list. Let's get this memory location out. Okay. So it's this right here. We're gonna load this guy right there. And then basically how this works is I can push play because my print is on input and I can listen to what's going on here. So we'll just kind of push play real quick. All right, the level's very low. That's something we're gonna mess with in a second. So I have that, and then I can, at any point, I can unclick this input and listen to the rough mix that they had when they were recording. So this is the edit that the artist signed off on before sending me the files, right? So this is the thing that the artist is listening to before I even got anything, which is really important because I always want to just check this and make sure that I'm at least in the right framework of what they're listening for, right? So then I can push play. And now I have this edit. So I can kind of go back and forth between the print and the actual session, right? Does that make sense? Okay, so now that we have this set up, what I'm gonna do is save this session. And typically what happens is when I have all my inputs set up roughly, people keep driving by. Typically what happens when I have all my inputs set up roughly, and then I've got my rough mix that's in my print track, I got my outputs, roughly set up, I'll do a save as, and I'm gonna put V01. Oops, I usually don't do that. And then I just name what I'm doing. So I'm just gonna put edit. So now I have a saved version of before I really start editing this thing, and then I have a saved version of my edit. And then once I'm done editing, completely done editing, I'll do another version and I'll say mix day 1 or whatever. And then typically at the end of every mix session, so let's just say I mix throughout the day, I'll do a, let's just say we're on V2 mix. So I'll mix throughout the day. And then at the end of that day, I'll do a V3 mix, day 1 and EON, end of night. So that I'm always just saving little mini backups just in case I mess something up and need to revert back. All right, so now what we're gonna do is you can tell that my level isn't even close. I mean, if I solo this thing, let's just go to the loudest point here. I can click this and see, okay, I'm peaking at like -20. So I need to be a bit louder. So I have just a simple way that I kind of get through this. And basically I use a plugin called Defaulter. So we're gonna go to Audio Suite, Defaulter. All right, so I have this set up as a preset that loads automatically. And what it does is it analyzes the track and then sets the track to where its max peak is at -10. So instead of -18, which it shows here right there, it's gonna raise it up to -10. So it at least gets me in the ballpark of some level, right? So we're gonna go through every single track. So I'm gonna select the waveform, we're gonna hit Analyze, and then you can watch the clip gain. Oh. Okay, friends, so I don't know if you can see my time, but one of the funniest, one of the most annoying things about working in a digital format is that when there's updates that happens, it can just totally wreck your whole workflow. So I have a good and bad habit of not updating plugins and not updating Pro Tools for a very long time. And once I find a good version of a plugin or Pro Tools, I kind of just leave it there and I don't touch it. So recently I had to update my Pro Tools. I actually did this like 2 days ago. And it was mainly because a bug got into my system to where I couldn't access any of these windows up here. There's nothing I could do. And so I had to update Pro Tools. And of course, now that I've updated Pro Tools, my Defaulter plugin does not work. And I have spent the last, I don't even know how long I've been doing this. You can tell the sun is in a totally different place now, trying to get this to work, going through the terminal app, doing the permissions, doing all the stuff, and I cannot get this thing to work. So we're gonna do this manually. And this is kind of a good lesson in like, you know, if, if something happens and your plugins aren't working and your main system isn't working, then you just gotta keep moving. So the good thing is that within this Defaulter plugin is normally what happens is I hit Analyze and I have this vocal selected and it says my peak is at -18 here. and I have it set the target level to -10. So what it's supposed to do is it's supposed to access my shortcuts, which is Control Shift up and down, and you can see the clip gain right here goes up and down, right? And then it adjusts my clip gain based on my peak level so that it sets my track at -10, which is a really good starting place just for mixing, right? So we're gonna do this manually, and I'm gonna run through this real quick, but basically, since this says it's at -18, I need to be about -8, so, or +8. So we're gonna go to +8, we'll analyze this again. Peak is at -10, so that's pretty decent. So we'll go to each of these, analyze. So we're at -23, so we need to raise this one 13.5. And we'll analyze it again. Perfect. This is so funny. I've never had to do it this way. -23.5, so we'll go 13.5. All right, we'll analyze it again. -10, perfect. And so I'll just skip ahead here real quick. All right, perfect. So now we have all of our tracks at least to a decent level. Let's see if we can hear what this sounds like.
There's not one but for me, I must have 2 or 3, I need 4. For some man who's a type who likes slippers and pipe at the door.
All right, cool. So that's decent. That sounds great. So now we at least have a level that we can work with, right? This is good. So the next thing that we're gonna do is I want to align these tracks. So this is basically a live session, right? So they recorded this together. If I solo the vocal here,
Need 4. For some man who's a type who likes slippers and pipe at the door.
so it's actually pretty good. You can't really hear the piano very well, but if I solo these rooms, which these are gonna be too loud, obviously, because they're just rooms.
For some man who's a type who likes slippers.
All right, so we have the vocal in the rooms, and let's just solo our pianos. Awesome. So there really isn't an issue there, but so what we're gonna do is I want to basically align everything, okay? So what we're gonna do is I'm gonna select all my tracks. I'm gonna hit Shift Option, and we're gonna go to this plugin that Sound Radix makes called Auto Align 2. I love this thing. Load this up, all right? So what this is gonna do is we're gonna play a section of this track here. So let's make sure we have a good vocal take. We're gonna select like about, we'll select about 30-ish seconds. So we'll go to about here. I'm gonna hit Align, I'm gonna push play, and it's gonna listen to every single one of those tracks and align them all together. And we'll hear if that makes a big difference.
There's not one but for me, I must have 2 or 3, I need 4. For some man who's a type who likes slippers and pipe at the door. Then, if at all possible, I'd like the guy who's not very bossy, but knows his mind.
Okay, now it's gonna do its magic. It's gonna align everything. All right, so it's taken the vocal and it's aligning everything to that vocal. Let's hear the difference.
There's not one but for me, I must have 2 or 3, I need 4. For some man who's a type who likes slippers and pipe at the door.
That's a huge difference, right? Let's turn these off.
There's not one but for me, I must have 2 or 3, I need 4.
Right, you can hear that the vocal isn't very clear. The low end, especially in the vocal, isn't very clear.
There's not one but for me, I must have 2 or 3, I need 4.
Right, let's turn this on.
There's not one but for me, I must have 2 or 3, I need 4.
Right, so let's listen to just the piano. And this is just everything panned down the center so that I can make sure that everything sounds good together in mono before I really put them out in stereo. So you can hear whenever I disable the auto align, the low end of the piano goes away and it sounds very thin, right? And whenever I have it on, it's thick. So let me show you this real quick. So this is with it off. And on. Right? So much better. All right, so now that we have this going on, I'm gonna go ahead, because I think this sounds better. I'm gonna select all these and I'm gonna hit commit. Now what this is gonna do is it's basically gonna take all the tracks and it's gonna bounce them down so I don't see this clip gain, I don't have this auto align plugin on, but it's gonna keep my tracks just in case I get through the mixing process and I'm like, oh, I don't like how it's aligned in the piano or whatever. Like I might redo it later, but this is just to get the session in a really good place. So we're gonna hit OK. So it's gonna analyze every single track. It's gonna render every single track individually. And then it's gonna create that render of a track, which is right here with the same colors. It's just a .cm. And then it's gonna make inactive the tracks here that we did. And as you can see, my clip gains are all at 0, my waveforms are all up and they're looking good. So now what we're gonna do is I'm gonna hide these guys. So we'll just hide them. And then now I have the session in a really good spot. So what I'll do from here is I'll just pan. So we'll take our low, we'll take our high, we'll keep this hole in the center. What we'll do is we'll just create I'm gonna create a piano group. Turn this off. It's getting so windy today. We're gonna take a room group. Let's mute this vocal. I want to hear.
Dolphin style. Then this band of my world will be spangled.
Awesome. So that's really great. We're going to make sure that these are all small. And the last thing that I'm going to do before I am kind of done editing this session is I'm going to create a couple auxes. So I'm going to get my pianos and we'll put a new track and I'll put piano aux. All right. And then we'll just make sure that these are the same color. Make sure that I'm going to my main master here. We're going to create a room aux. Same thing, make sure they're the same color. Main master. And then we're just going to create a mono. We'll just put Vox aux. We'll get that color right, and then same thing, we'll go to the main master. All right, perfect. So from here, what I'll normally do is I'll go through this vocal and I'll listen through and I'll take out any clicks, any pops, anything like that, just making sure that it's super clean. I'll edit out, maybe this beginning and make sure that the song starts where I want it to start. We'll go to the end, make sure the end, there's not just extra audio there. And then the last thing that I do is I take all these tracks and I just turn them all down. I keep the auxes up, but I want all these down. We'll turn this group off. And then, all right, and then I'll just make sure there's no audio playing. Okay, so that's the last thing I do whenever this is ready to mix. And then I'll save it. And then what we'll do is we'll do a V2 mix. All right, so this signifies that this song is ready to mix. It's ready to go. So when I've gone through all of the sessions, I've edited everything, I will load up this session, open it up, and I'll have my SSL UF8 controller, my fader controller, and I will just start bringing up the faders and try to get this song to sound the best it possibly can with just those faders. And that's the first thing that I do in the mixing process. And then I'll go and start adding plugins. I'll do some processing, do some reverb. And I like to do all that stuff kind of on the fly. I don't want a bunch of presets all set up and sitting there and ready to go. That's just me. It's just my preference. I really like to have freedom whenever I mix. And I like to go on the fly. And whenever I hear something, I want to just do it. I want to adjust it. I want to go for it. And so that's my basic setup of setting up a session and getting it ready for mix. Obviously, if it's a much bigger session, when I have drums, I'll align drums. Sometimes I'll add, some samples for drums. If the drums were recorded very weak, I'll have auxes for bass guitars, for strings, for background vocals, all that stuff. And again, I'll kind of leave my reverbs out of it. I want to just bring all those faders down, even if it's a big session, and I want to bring everything up and try to get that mix as best as possible before I start throwing in automation, before I start throwing in, automation, but also plugins and processing, right? So if you like this workflow and you like this style of mixing and you want to do this for people and you want to gain a solid foundation of your mixing skills so that you can get better clients and really fuel your passion, and don't forget, I'm doing that 4-week mixing mastermind that starts in about 3 weeks. You can just click in the description below and you can book a call with me. I'd love to talk with you. There's only going to be a limited amount of spots that are available for this because I want to keep it small and I want to keep it in this small community of people that really want to help each other and really want to grow together. We're meeting 3 times a week for 4 weeks. It's going to be so much fun. So if you're interested in that, click the link, and if not, no worries. I hope this was beneficial for you and you can take this kind of workflow and apply it to your own sessions. The sun is starting to come out again, and it's time for Margot and I to run up this mountain before we have to come back in and start mixing this project. I'll see you on the next one, friend. Peace.